but I wanted to pin the number down exactly to how many coaches either of us would take ahead of Dan Campbell. I think you start with Andy Reid. It's unarguable. He's the best coach in the league. Sean McVay, I think, is another no-brainer. He also brings the culture that Dan Campbell does. Not to the extent, but 80% of it. And also is a genius play caller. You don't have to worry about replacing your offensive coordinator. Fair. Totally fair. Those, to me, are the two best coaches in the league. Kind of in a tier of their own. Maybe even each in a tier of their own. Are you on board with that, or is there someone else you throw into this?
Well, I do agree that McVay is one of the best coaches in the league, but, Dan Campbell has just done he's just beaten Sean McVay every time they've matched up. Well, I guess that year one, they didn't beat him, but I understand that's not, everything that goes into coaching and everything, but,
No.
What else is he supposed to do to prove he's a better coach, you know?
Dan Campbell or Sean McVay?
Dan Campbell.
What do you mean, what is there to prove?
He's beaten Sean McVay in, several high-leverage situations.
Sean McVay's also went to 2 different Super Bowls with 2 different quarterbacks and won one of them.
I understand, but if we're doing a one-for-one matchup here, you know what I'm just throwing a case out there.
I respect it, but I don't think head-to-head records when there's that few games matter. Because what, he's 1-2. Dan Campbell's 2-1 against him.
I think so.
So, okay, but
playoff game.
I think there's still a lot of questions that remain for what Dan Campbell does as an offensive play caller. And I know he's not calling plays this year, but I think this year we'll have a pretty big idea of how involved Dan Campbell is on the offense.
We can give it to McVay. I'm just throwing out the case for Dan Campbell.
I just think anyone that's not a Lions fan would say that's outrageous to throw Dan Campbell into that conversation going into year 5, where McVay's been doing it for 8 years now.
Okay. No, just keep going then. Keep going.
The Harbaughs both have to be considered. John has been doing it long enough, and Jim has enough pedigree to where anywhere he's been, they've just won.
See, but Jim Harbaugh's year 1 with the Chargers.
But think about everything he did with the 49ers.
Sure, but that
too.
was
that comes into consideration.
That
comes into consideration what he did at Michigan.
We're taking in consideration what happened 15 years ago?
What, do you only want to look at what's happened the past 2?
I don't know.
Does it not matter what he did at Michigan in terms of how we talk about him as coach?
That's not in the NFL.
I'm just talking about coaching, straight up.
Who
are
the
best coaches
in Michigan?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
What, do you not think Belichick should be one of the best coaches of all time because of
We're not
some of that
talking about
stuff?
best coaches of all time. We're talking
what
about
are we talking about then?
Aren't we doing best coaches in the league?
Yes, right now.
Yeah, and you're telling me a guy that has been back for 1 year is better than Dan Campbell.
Made the playoffs in year 1? That's pretty impressive.
Oh, great. He made the playoffs. Congrats, dude. So did Dan Campbell.
Not in year 1.
Whatever, man.
I haven't even told you whether or not I think Dan Campbell's ahead of him yet. I'm just talking out loud right now, saying that Jim and John Harbaugh need to at least be in the conversation around Dan Campbell.
I just knew you were going to bring it up. That's all I'm saying. Keep going, though.
Shanahan's a funny one because Kyle Shanahan also considered this offensive play, this play calling genius, but can't come back in the fourth quarter. It needs to be playing with a lead. Has never really had the quarterback other than, I guess, Brock Purdy can be considered one of these guys now that he's been paid. But there's just been too many fourth quarters that have been blown or lack of comebacks that have happened for me to feel comfortable putting Sean McVay in the tier of anyone else I've just named.
You mean Shanahan?
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan.
Even though he's developed all these coaches, which is kind of hilarious.
Yes.
Well, not developed them, but just, has the legendary coaching tree or whatever.
Everyone takes his general concepts and they're a little bit smarter in terms of what to do in a game. No one scripts a better game first quarter than Kyle Shanahan. But when you actually get to the fourth quarter and you got to start making adjustments, I don't think he's that good at that.
Also, he's just lost a lot of very important games in the playoffs.
I'd argue he's lost every important game in the playoffs, essentially.
Right. Well, it did come back to beat the Lions, but...
Yeah. That was more of a self-implosion than it was any coaching adjustments.
I think I would agree with that.
Penalties.
Fumbles.
Face
masks.
Helmets, or footballs bouncing off face masks, if that's what you were implying.
Yes, I was.
Where does the jury lay on Mike Tomlin these days.
That's a tough one. I was just thinking about
one.
that. Man, I was just thinking about that. And look, I have kind of been the Mike Tomlin hater of sorts.
Right, because him and Tom Izzo have had the same career.
You agreed that was over, by the way.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm done.
Just saying. Look, Mike Tomlin is I don't think he can be higher than Dan Campbell, but also, I mean, Dan Campbell hasn't won a Super Bowl, but like the Steelers have lost, I think, 5 straight playoff games. Like, but it does say something to make the playoffs every year in the NFL. I will say, like, that says a lot. So if you do take Tomlin over Dan Campbell, sure. I think he also is one of the more elite culture guys in the league. Just seems like one of the better player coaches in the league, Mike Tomlin is. Even though there is always some like weird issues going on with the guys in Pittsburgh, so maybe not. The receivers always seem to have some drama going on.
As I've stated, I think Pittsburgh's getting like 6 wins this year. 7 wins maybe. I just don't think they're very good.
If he can, but then you look at the team like the last couple years, and you're like, man, he got Kenny Pickett to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's a real case that Aaron Rodgers is a worse quarterback than Kenny Pickett was 2 years ago this season.
Wow, really? Wow. I mean, I'm not high on Rodgers, but that's an insult.
He's 40. This doesn't happen. There's zero evidence outside of Tom Brady that this is going to work.
Right.
And Tom Brady's the anomaly. I'm just very pessimistic about the idea of anyone that's putting real expectations on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, I think is a little bit out of their minds.
But how are they out of their minds if they make the playoffs every year, you know? And, like, they probably got better as a team this offseason. I would think so. Just from the additions that they've made. I'm not, like, saying I'm in on the Steelers, but I don't think it's crazy to say, yeah, they're going to go 9-8 again.
Well, I think they're the 3rd best team in their division, and I think there's
They
2
are
other
every
teams
year.
in the AFC West that seem a lot better than them. 3 other teams in the AFC West.
Yeah.
I'd be pretty shocked if they made the playoffs.
So are you? But going back to Tomlin, Campbell, where are you leaning?
Campbell.
I think I am too. But if you make the case for Tomlin, I'm not that upset about it.
Better case for Tomlin or Jim Harbaugh? Oh my God.
That's tough. No comment.
I would take Harbaugh over him straight up. Not Dan Campbell. I'm still on the fence about that one. And then the other person that would come to mind is some people would make the argument for Sirianni, but I know the Super Bowl, like you have to at least acknowledge it. And he got the team to come together after the team completely fell apart under his own watch. So if he wants credit for that, I guess you can take it.
Has
but you're
gone
kind
to 2 Super Bowls as well. Like
also kind of the reason the team imploded and by far the most talented roster in the league. So
he's a tough one to grade for sure.
I would take Dan Campbell.
What
over
about
him.
Sean Payton?
Who I'd probably take Sean Payton over Dan Campbell too.
I'm just trying to think of
from a
other
legacy
guys
standpoint.
Yeah.
He's just proven to be able to win with anything other than Russell Wilson.
The legacy stuff is just hard because it's like Dan Campbell doesn't have the option to do this legacy stuff, you know? Like we have to grade him based on what he's been so far, which is probably the best coach in Lions history.
But I think when you talk about coaches, the legacy stuff does matter.
No, I understand that, but like it's,
more so than
it's
players.
Unfair to a guy like Dan Campbell to bring that into consideration, right?
It is, but is there anyone that actually would take Dan Campbell over Sean Payton other than like the Fords and Brad Holmes? Probably not. Anyone would rather just have Sean Payton.
I don't know.
Because it's not like Sean Payton like lacks the culture. Like Dan Campbell gets talked about with the culture so much, like no other team has great culture. Like there's a lot of coaches that bring an awesome culture to the table, and I think Sean Payton's definitely one of them. And now it just seems like I'm doing an anti-Dan Campbell thing. But
Dan Campbell brought a culture to a franchise that didn't have one for 30 years.
Correct.
You know, like that's why that it gets talked about so much.
And I do think it's probably the best or second best, like in that tier of top cultures in the NFL. But I just think there are a couple other coaches that do a very similar thing to that. That just it doesn't get talked about because they're also calling plays. Like Sean Payton is a perfect example of that. Everything out of the Broncos camp is like, oh yeah, like they're ready to go. It's like he's also a great play caller. So yeah, I don't know how anyone could make that.
Any love for Pete Carroll with the Raiders if you're doing all this legacy stuff?
No, probably not.
Oh, come on. You're not throwing him into the conversation with this legacy stuff?
No, because he's over the threshold of like, he's like really old.
So Andy Reid is really old. Bill Belichick was really old.
Yeah, and Bill Belichick kind of lost his fastball at the end.
Man, I don't understand the approach you're taking here, dude. So
Really, it's just a feel out, you know?
What about, I think some under the radar guys, like a Todd Bowles with Tampa Bay, I think is one of the more underrated coaches. I'm not saying he's better than Dan Campbell.
No, I don't think so, too, but I totally am aligned with you that just the Buccaneers organization in general, one of the more underrated ones across the league.
Absolutely.
Consistent.
And then, I mean, like, O'Connell deserves love, but no way you're putting him over Dan Campbell because, once again, Dan Campbell has just owned him.
But O'Connell, Coach of the Year, 1. Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year's 0.
Right. Announced immediately after that Week 18 game, by the way.
So stupid.
It's very stupid.
So stupid. That's probably it. Some idiot Packers fan would probably make the argument for Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, well, sure, dude.
It's their same argument as like
double-digit wins the first 3 years.
Dude, it's the same argument as Jordan Love being the best quarterback in the NFC North. Like, okay, man, sure. Whatever. Let the Packers fans believe what they want to believe. That's probably it, right?
On paper, though, LaFleur does have a pretty good case. I will say, like, on paper, it's pretty good. He's only missed the playoffs one time as the Packers coach. Kind of impressive.
There's also someone in the division that owns him, which I think, like, if you're going to be considered one of these top coaches, you can't be owned by another coach. And Dan Campbell has certainly owned Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, I would agree.
Are we missing anybody? I think that's it.
I think that's it. So, I mean, he's probably somewhere in the what? Like right outside the top 5?
Yeah. I think the coaches that would take over Dan Campbell are Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Sean McVay, and both the Harbaughs. And
Both
that's it.
of them.
Yeah.
So that would put him right around 5?
That would put him at 6. Unless there's one more. And then he could be 7.
What do you mean by that?
989-837-6125. Let's see what you guys think. You guys can text in 989-837-6125. Carson said, tell him, Kyle, MCDC over Sean McVay. Come on, guys.
I just like...
I can't get there with the McVay
Okay,
thing. He's like clearly number 2 in the NFL.
Is, if we're doing a 1-for-1, the fact that you're just like not even considering the fact that Dan Campbell beat him in the playoffs... but you're just like it's not even. I'm not here saying Campbell's better, but you're just like not even considering it. Like, just who cares about the playoff game, right? Let's talk about play calling. You know, like what? Isn't the
That's
point
not
of
what I'm saying.
Isn't the point of coaching to win the games?
Yes, and I think the Lions the Lions were favored in that game, right, against the Rams. Like they had a better team.
The Lions hadn't won a playoff game in 30 years, dude.
That's not Dan Campbell's fault. Now you're making it feel like I'm attacking Dan Campbell. I'm not. I think the world of Sean McVay. I think any team across the league would sign up immediately, unless it's Kansas City, for him to be their coach for the next 20 years. And any owner that says otherwise is lying.
You think the Lions would get rid of Campbell if McVay was available?
No, I don't, actually.
There you go.
But I don't. The Rams would laugh if the Lions called up and were like, you guys want to trade coaches?
Yeah, but
one for
McVay's
one?
also been like in this I'm going to retire thing for like 3 years randomly. So, like, he could just be available at some point, you know?
I guess, but I also don't really anticipate him retiring anymore. Do you?
Probably not. I think that was all just like a rumor about, like, he wanted it with his kids growing up or something like that. I don't remember.
All right, then let's ask the people this. How far can we take this thing? How high do you rank Dan Campbell amongst coaches in the NFL? Because I have him 6, and I feel like that's generous. How far do you guys want to take this? Do you think he's 2?
Is he top 5, top 3?
If he's better than Sean McVay, that to me is saying he's the second best coach in the NFL, which I think is a little bit egregious for a guy that has 2 playoff wins.
Once again, I'm not saying he's better than McVay, but the fact that you're just throwing out any chance of him being better, I think is a little bit irresponsible.
The best thing going for Dan Campbell, in my opinion, is how he basically started the trend of how aggressive teams are going to be on 4th down. Because that, like, he got so much criticism for that.
Yeah.
And then you saw the Commanders doing it. You saw the Bills doing
Everybody
it. You see
does
the Eagles do it. Everyone goes for it on 4th down ultra aggressively now. And he kind of set the tone for that because it was
the
like
analytics, you know?
I thought it was the opposite of that. It's like analytics say you can shove. Yeah, that's what Dan Campbell he didn't say that, but he takes into consideration the analytics, but everything we've learned from him at his press conferences was, I just believe in our guys that we're going to pick up this 4th and 1. I believe in this offensive line. And he kind of threw the analytics out the window and said, we can do this. I don't really care what they say. That, I think, was like a huge revelation across the league in the last couple of years, because now you've seen a handful of teams kind of embrace that. And it works because Well, there's evidence of it. 989-837-6125. We'll take a trip around the league. When we come back, it's the Ben Bosscher Show on 100.9 The Mid.